Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Acoustic Guitar I.O. I'm Cam's your host, and today I'm quite excited because I'm testing out my recording rig for going away to the Cotswolds at the end of the month for the annual RMMGA gathering. RMMGA was a news group that was started, I don't know when, I'm going to guess around 2003. Someone will be able to help out with that. Possibly sooner than that even, because I got online first of all when I got to Luxembourg, which was 2001, and I bought my first reasonably high-end guitar, I want to say 2002, which was a Lakewood M14, which was mahogany and cedar top. Gorgeous guitar. I loved that guitar, and thus began my obsession with guitar. So when I found out about the RMMGA gatherings, which are held in different places around the world, but there's one in the UK which has been running now for I think this is the 22nd year. So I started going to that probably 2004. My daughter was just born, I think. In fact, I seem to recall missing one because my daughter's birth coincided with the date of the gathering. So I think my first one was probably 2005. Yeah, that seems pretty certain. I went 5 or 6 times, not entirely sure how many, but enough. I became a fixture. I loved it. I went, played my very first performance at that gathering, which was amazing. I can't remember the tune that I played, but I do remember one of the guys there, George Duff, coming up and handing me a glass of whiskey after I'd played my first performance, and that was the best glass of whiskey I think I ever had. So it's happening again at the end of this month, weekend of the 29th of June. So it crosses over into Monday the 1st of July. I'll be driving down. I'm taking my recording rig. It's going to be my most complex recording setup yet. Last year at the gathering was when I did my very first podcast recording, which was with Will McNichol. And that went well. I was pleased with it, and Will was just so gracious. He was really good interviewee, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking to him. And that he's given me some good support. He shared my podcast, and we've been in constant contact ever since. And I'm very grateful to Will for helping me to break my interview cherry, so to speak. I did a few interviews there, including Gordon Giltrap, and while I was doing Gordon's interview, which was phenomenal actually, I really enjoyed that one. Such a pleasure to speak to Gordon. And while I was doing it, I sneakily set up my iPhone on a tripod and just set it to record video. And when I got home, I had a look at it. I had some good audio coming from proper mics because it was intended to be an audio podcast. And I synced the video to the audio and published it, and it added so much, I thought, to the interview, to be able to watch Gordon's talking and see his expression and what have you. So there began the germ of the idea that video was probably the way that I should be going in order to make my content as valuable as it could be. I knew nothing about video, not a thing. So it came to March 2018 and I discovered DTube and the Steam blockchain. And through that, I learned how to start making video. I was encouraged by some of the D-Daily guys. The D-Daily is a group of creators on the Steam blockchain. And I was encouraged by them to start vlogging. And I remember watching Joe Gilder's vlog. Joe Gilder's one of my teachers. He does an online studio tuition website called Home Studio Corner, which is homestudiocorner.com. And I learned a lot from Joe, from taking his courses and from being a VIP member of his website. I learned how to mix and master. But at that time, he was producing these amazing vlogs, and they were so entertaining. And I remember watching him and thinking, my gosh, they must take up so much time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, turns out to be the case. I started vlogging March 2018, and slowly over the year and a bit, it's become a habit. But not only that, I've come to learn how much time and effort it takes, not to mention equipment and software, etc. So it's been a steep curve, but it's a curve I've been enjoying. I do love technical stuff. And so I've been setting up today. I could talk you around my gear. I've got a 2-camera shoot going. I've got this one, which is camera 1. And one of the problems I had with camera 1, which is a Sony a7 III, is that the recording limit's set to 30 minutes. And last week I had Jen Butterworth round for an interview, set the cameras up, and I had to get up halfway through, excuse myself, stop the recording and then restart it, which was, you know, a bit of a pain. So I found a solution which cost a fair bit of money, but I think it's a solution that's going to work, and it's this. It's an external recorder and monitor, which I'm now looking straight at, and the picture quality is phenomenal. It records straight to hard drive, so it's got an SSD plugged in, and it should give me around 10 hours of record time. It depends on the compression that you use, etc, etc, the codec. But I think that's going to work for me. So I'm testing it now because, you've heard me say this before, always test your gear. Yeah? I didn't test my microphones when Jen was here, and that turned out to be a bad move because I didn't manage to get my condenser mic to work through this mixing console behind me, which meant that the audio was not particularly good, and I ended up using my backup. So that's another lesson for you. Do a backup. Always have a backup recorder. So camera 1 is over here, and camera 2 is my Sony a6400. Now the beauty of this camera is that it doesn't cut off after 30 minutes. It's to do with tax, so I've read online, and the EU legislation must have changed since they brought out the 6400, and it means that this camera won't shut off after 30 minutes. Now, if the legislation has changed, I don't understand why they can't bring out some firmware for this camera that would allow it to record beyond 30 minutes. But in any event, I now have a monitor which lets me look at what I'm recording, and that is really worthwhile. I can see this one here. It's got a flip-up screen. It's the first Sony camera to have that, but this one here just looks spectacular. So, so I've set up my gear. What I'm doing is I'm recording into my Zoom H4n, and I'm using this condenser mic, which has actually fallen over. So that's something I'm going to think about. I'm hoping that, given the demographic of the place I'm going to, that it will be men with shirts and not just t-shirts. So that gives me something better to connect the mic to. But I'm testing it today on myself just to see how it works on a t-shirt, because I need to be prepared for that. So if you'll excuse me a moment, I'm just going to adjust and see if I can get it to point up the way. Not easily, but we got there. So I spent this week researching lav mics, and I found a few that would suit, particularly the Rode pin mic, which I thought would be useful. It's a microphone that has a back plate which goes behind the clothing and has 3 little pins that pierce the clothing, and then a tiny capsule that connects to the front. I'm not sure how people would feel about having their clothes pierced, but in any event, I've spent so much on screens and other equipment, such as a small rig cage, which I'm going to have to wrap around my a7 III. The budget for mics was really not there at the moment, so I've got 2 of these, and hopefully these will work. Pray to God that they do. I'm going to have 2 lavalier mics going into that, so recording onto SD card. One of the issues was I'm hoping to interview Tom Sands, luthier, and his apprentice Daisy, which means 3 people, right? 2 inputs for XLRs, 3 people. What are we going to do? Well, you can actually set this to 4-track mode, which allows you to record left channel, right channel with XLRs, and also use the built-in mics for another 2 channels. So what I'm going to do is 1 person, 2nd person, 3rd person. So this will go on a tripod in front of the third person, and it will give me 3 discrete audio channels, which should work out well. I'm going to have to test that with my kids, because obviously I can't test that on my own. I need to have 3 people just to see how it works. My backup is just a single Omni condenser mic. There you go. It's a cheap Chinese one. I bought this when I started recording back in 2002, 3, something like that. When I was recording on my PC, a CD for some friends of mine who were getting married, and I made an album of songs for them. It's a Studio Projects B3 omnidirectional condenser mic, so it has a polar pattern which picks up from all around the room. So this is a backup. It should pick up the room, which in itself isn't going to be good because you'll hear all the room noise. But as a backup, it could prove to be invaluable, because as I have experienced, if you don't have a backup, sometimes you don't have content. So what I'll do now is I'll just click, and now I'm going to talk into the backup mic on its own so that you can hear how that sounds. You'll be able to hear the room, as I said. If I get in closer, it should go up in volume and come back again. You'll hear the room. It's recording into Studio One on my laptop through an Apollo Twin interface connected by Thunderbolt. So it's just recording a single audio track, which should work out well as a backup if I need one. I've also got, on top of my A6400, a Rode microphone, but that's only going to pick up what it's pointing at, because it's a directional microphone. So this is how the Rode microphone sounds on its own. This is me talking directly into the A6400, which could actually do with being levelled a little bit. So I'm going to reach in, and then I'll see whether it actually changes the microphone, because there's no shock mount or anything. They're a bit more level now. So shock mount on this one, which is in case it gets bumped or knocked or banged, then you know you're going to have no sort of vibrations coming through the mics. So, oh yes, the other mic I'm using is what I usually use for recording in the house, which is my Line 6 microphone. So I will now talk into my Line 6 microphone, which is probably what you've been listening to for the whole recording up until I started experimenting a wee bit. This goes into that. Well, actually it's got a receiver down here below the desk, which is connected to my mixer console, and then there's a feed from the mixer console going straight into the Atomos Ninja 5 HD recorder. So that's my rig. It's complicated, but I'm glad to have this opportunity to check it out. You know, always check your gear. It's such a big and obvious thing, but it's something that you often don't have time to do. So when I get down south, I'm going to hopefully get the library again, which is the room I got last year, and I'll be able to set this up and hopefully just leave it running. Not leave it running, leave it set up so that I can just invite people to come and sit down, and we'll be good to go, because it's quite a lot of gear and a lot of plugging in and out, etc. I also got to work out how I'm going to carry it all. So I've been working with my 2 camera bags. So trying to set up a rig in this one, which is my Low Pro that I bought when I got my D200. So that's going back a wee bit. I used to shoot Nikon, started with the D70S, D200, D300. I sold them all for Sony when I wanted to start doing video. But yeah, my Low Pro bag, so it's going to have my audio, my Zoom 4N microphones, 85mm art lens, which is a bit of a beast, and it's going to have my Atomos screen, some cables, etc. This one's my most recent purchase, just a small Vanguard Alta Rise 33, which I actually bought to try and fit my gimbal in. I use a Moza Aircross, and it does fit if you unscrew it all. So there's that one, and I've also got this Low Pro sling bag, which is great for city shooting because it slings over your back and then you can flip it round to the front and open it. my Peak Design 30 litre everyday backpack, which is over there, so I won't show you that just now. And cables and headphones and all sorts of stuff. So I've been making a list so that I can figure out exactly what I need to take with me. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to record for over 30 minutes. 12:18 I started, so where are we now? 35. So that's nearly 20 minutes already. Really? Goodness gracious. Anyway, so content wise with the guitar, I just had a delivery from Canva, and I'm just going to unbox it for you. I know what it is, but it's quite exciting. This is something I've been meaning to do for a while and didn't do in time for the folk festival, which was a mistake, but I've done it for my next trip. So Canva says thank you, you're welcome. They sent me a sticker, cool, and 2 boxes of business cards. So I'll bring it up to this camera. There we go. That's the front, Acoustic Guitar IO podcast, and on the back it's just my mobile number and email address. What I ought to have done, but didn't think of, is something I'd like to talk about just now. Patreon. Yes, I started a Patreon page through the week. It's something I've been thinking about doing for a while. Just wasn't quite sure how to do it on the one hand, and also not entirely comfortable with the concept. But I think that's just the 40-something in me, just not accepting new business models, I suppose. I don't know. Psychologically, it's a bit weird, but I subscribe to 4 Patreon feeds, and I think it's a really good model. Subscribing a small amount of dollars in a monthly subscription model really helps content creators, and doesn't cost all that much for supporters. So the music content that I watch and the podcasts that I listen to, I feel are worthy of some of my money because they're worthy of some of my attention, and I learn a lot from them. I spend a lot of time watching these videos and listening to these podcasts. So I thought I would start my own. Started it this week. I'm still trying to work out what the kind of perks I'm going to offer would be. But within a week, I have got 3 patrons. In fact, within half an hour, I had 1 patron, which was just mind-blowing. So thank you. I got a $1 subscription and a nice message to thank me for my lesson of The Ghost of Tom Joad, which was just amazing. It's encouraged me to make more lessons, so look out for that coming very soon once I get all of these interviews out the way and these trips. It was just so encouraging and amazing to think that someone out there would consider my content worthy and valuable enough to contribute. So it's just amazing. I then shared a link on Twitter with some of my crypto friends over on the Steam blockchain, and I got 2 $5 subscriptions within 24 hours. John G. Olson was the first one. I met John when I was in Krakow at the Steam Fest 3, and John's an awesome guy. He hung around with us quite a lot as part of the D-Daily group. We had a big Airbnb, which we called D-Daily Mansion, and John came around a lot and visited us, and he's just an all-round great guy. He runs a thing called Steam Savvy, which is a service that he set up to help people understand the Steam blockchain and how to use it, how to monetize it, how to meet people and engage and that sort of thing. He's very big in the crypto world and a really good guy to know. So check out Steam Savvy if you're interested in learning how to use the Steam blockchain to publish content, to make friends, to learn, to be inspired. You can go on there and you can earn cryptocurrency, Steam cryptocurrency, just through your content. It's really something that I really recommend you do. The other contributor was Nathan Mars. Now, again, Nathan I know through the Steam blockchain. I met Nathan at the Steam Fest 3 in Krakow. He actually crashed in the D-Daily mansion for a few nights, and we had some really good conversations. Nathan is a big crypto enthusiast, and he is responsible for the Steam 777 promotion, which is really something he's created himself to try and boost the price of crypto and to get it into people's minds using traditional social media channels. So he's on Twitter promoting Steam 777 through a push-up challenge, where a lot of Steamians come on, and their challenge is to do 7 push-ups a day for 77 days or 770 days. So it's a really good way of promoting Steam cryptocurrency. And he also subscribed to my Patreon at $5. So I'm eternally grateful both to Nathan and to John. Thank you so much, guys. Right, teaching-wise, things are going pretty well. I haven't got anywhere near the number of pupils I would like to have, but I do have a couple of regulars, and I'm feeling much more comfortable with what I'm doing. It's going well. I'm learning how to teach. I'm learning how to engage with people. I'm actually quite good at it, which surprised me. A bit like the interviews. I'm not wanting to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I feel that it's probably many years of speaking in AA meetings, but I actually feel quite comfortable in front of the camera, and I also feel quite comfortable talking to someone in an interview sort of format. I do need to learn how to relax a little bit. I think I'm okay at listening, but sometimes when I listen back to what I've recorded, I think, oh, I should have gone that way, or oh, there was an opportunity for a question that I didn't ask. That kind of thing. But because so far everything I've done has been unscripted, which means I'm going with the flow. And I think in some ways that's a good thing, because it sounds more like an active conversation than it does a scripted conversation. And so in that respect, I suppose it's okay that I don't find myself going where I would like to when I listen back and think, oh, you know what I mean? It's more of a natural conversation. And when you're having a natural conversation, you don't always think of things that, you know, you go where the conversation takes you. And I quite like that about my interview style. So coming back to the teaching thing, I think I'm okay now at engaging with my pupils. I think I'm good at giving them the sort of right level of encouragement about listening to what they want. That's a big part of it. Listening to what they want and trying to make it fun for them rather than a chore. Yep, I'm a musician, self-taught, and I suffer sometimes from lack of motivation or lack of organisation, time management, all these kinds of things. So over the years I've come up with hacks, checklists, or 10 minutes a day, or keeping a diary, all sorts of different things, and they usually work for a certain length of time and then stop working eventually after a bit. But I've learned that about myself, and so another part of that is learning not to beat myself up too much. If I fall off of a scheduled plan, or I don't learn a certain thing by a certain time, whatever it is I've decided I'm going to do, I figure that as long as I'm using my time in a creative way, which could be photography, could be videography, could be audio editing, anything like that, and even to some extent watching other people's content, it's all, or could all be considered as work or research. And so I need not to try and think of, I haven't done this, I'm going to be depressed and just sack the whole thing and watch Netflix. That's not the way to go. So try and stay positive and try and see the value in the things that I'm doing, and try and make sure that the things I'm doing are valuable. Does that make sense? Because, you know, if I'm not using my time wisely, then I'm not making anything and I'm not progressing. But if I consider the value in where I'm putting my time, then I'll be okay. It'll help me to remain positive and upbeat and to progress, you know, because sometimes I get overwhelmed. If I sit down, like after this, I'm going to have, 1, 2, 3, 4 different audio channels, 2 camera angles. I'm going to have to import it all, figure out how to edit it, etc. I'm going to find things that I don't know how to do. That means going to Google, that means watching video. And everything that I decide I'd like to do on a particular day often seems to take 3 times or maybe even more, as long as I expected it to take. And that can lead to, dejection. But I need to remain positive and understand that even if that's the case, I'm learning all the time. My content, I think, is infinitely better than it was when I started vlogging back in March 2018. So, it is what it is. Improvement is the order of the day, and remaining positive. That's my message for today, folks. Have we been over half an hour yet? 18, 28, 38, 48. So another 2 minutes to go, and we'll see whether this recorder here is going to keep going. Can I see record time on this camera? Yeah, we're at 28 minutes and 11. So we're doing okay. We're doing fine. I probably had a list of things I wanted to talk to you about. And of course they go out my mind because I have no script. But the main thing I wanted to say today was thank you to my Patreon subscribers. If you're watching this and you've got this far into the video, please consider coming along to my Patreon feed and just throwing $1 at me a month. It really would mean the world, and it would help me to show my wife, first and foremost, who's my biggest supporter, that I'm not wasting my time, that this does have potential, that my people out there believe in me, they believe that my channel has value. I've got all sorts of plans for stuff I can bring you, music that I can record, video from concerts, live music shows. There's all sorts of things. I've got the equipment now to do it. I'm practicing with it all the time. So come along to my Patreon feed, patreon.com/acousticguitar.io, and you can come in there and throw $1 at me a month, or even $5 if you would like to. It's that weird thing when you're asking people for money and you feel a little bit guilty about it. But hey, I work in retail. I run a post office, so people come in all the time and buy stuff. So it's a weird thing, feeling guilty asking for money. But I believe in myself. My wife believes in me, which is amazing. She actually is at the post office most of the time now, doing my job and her job, which is working as a translator. So she's doing both of them in the post office while I'm at home trying to figure out how to work my channel and how to improve my content. How are we doing over here? We've just passed the 30-minute mark on that camera. This one, I can't see the actual record time because it already had time code when I started. But I'm sure it was 18 minutes past 12 on the 21st of June. And we're now at, 48 minutes past 12. And it's still recording. It's plugged into the mains, so I don't need to worry about the batteries running out on that. The A7 III has really good battery life. Don't need to worry about that. The A6400, the battery life really sucks. So I've just bought another 2 batteries for it. So I've got 4 altogether. That will allow me to have 2 on charge, 1 in my pocket, 1 in the camera, and just keep the flow going. But change the battery on this one before every single interview. This one here will keep going, so it's awesome. Lighting sorted. So excited. So I'm going to unplug all this kit. I might keep some stuff out because I want to practice, as I said, doing the 3-person recording with the Zoom H4n. See how that goes. And then figure out how I'm going to pack it all and work on my list. Next week's going to be crazy. My daughter's doing a fiddle recital on Tuesday. On Monday is the High School Musical show, which both of my children are in. It's going to be amazing. It's always fantastic. Wednesday, I'm going away with my daughter to go and see a musical in Glasgow overnight. So we're sleeping in the car on Wednesday night. We're going to see Avenue Q Muppet Show, apparently. She's really excited to see it. And then Thursday, I'm driving down south. So it's about 6 or 7 hour drive. So I'll be leaving Thursday night and sleeping in the car Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and also Wednesday night. So I'm sleeping in the car for, is that 6 nights? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 nights. Gosh, just as well I've got a comfy mattress in the back. So that's me for today, folks. Thank you very much for listening for this length of time. It really means the world to have your attention. I would love it if you would follow me on social media just to help me get my numbers up, etc. It really helps. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, go along to the iTunes store and give this podcast a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy. That really helps people to find it, and it helps me to be able to grow the channel and just keep it going. So any way you can support me, folks, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you or talk to you in the next video or podcast. Bye for now.